All right, everybody, it is the top of the hour. Welcome to today's webinar, Brainware Troubleshooting Tips and Tricks with Naviant's very own James Ondak. He's one of our Brainware experts here, and we are so glad he's able to join us for this topic. He'll be exploring a variety of strategies and best practices that will help you proactively prevent issues from occurring and even solve problems as they arise. So for those of you who have never attended one of our webinars, I have some housekeeping items to review. If you have been here before, this is just your reminder that the audience is muted, although be sure to use that chat box that's available to type comments and questions. Please complete the survey that's at the end of the webinar. We really enjoy reading your feedback and ideas to consider them for future webinars. And if you're curious about other webinars we've done in the past, you can check them out at naviant.com/resources/video. So James, could you introduce yourself before we dive into the information that you have planned for us today?
I absolutely can. Thank you, Nella. My name is James Ondak, and I'm here on behalf of the customer success team. Here's a little snapshot of the team, and it's certainly grown over the past few years. I actually think this slide is a little outdated. There's a few familiar faces on here that haven't been added yet, and I myself have been promoted to architect recently, so I won't be there directly to help out with your Brainware issues anymore, but don't worry, I will be helping behind the scenes, and you guys are in great hands. So today I basically plan on giving you everything you need to know to troubleshoot and figure out some issues. So the first things I would like to talk about are image quality, backups, RTS, log files, Workdoc Browser, which is a fantastic utility that I feel like not too many people are familiar with, our reporting queries, and then Hyland has some great documentation and training that is available. So first things first, let's figure out how familiar everybody is with Brainware. Would you say you're more of an expert? You know, you probably know more than I do. You're somewhere in the middle, and you know enough to be dangerous, but it's still kind of scary. Or you're kind of a beginner where everything's on fire, and oh my God, please help me. So let's give this a minute or so, and figure out everything. If you guys want to go ahead and fill those out for us. Okay, yeah, perfect, thank you. Okay, so before we begin, I want to get this out of the way right now. Image quality is the most important thing in Brainware because, as the old saying goes, garbage in equals garbage out. If you're throwing in garbage documents, Brainware is not going to be able to do much with that, and you're not going to have a good experience. So I kind of wanted to go over Hyland's recommendations for image quality. I pulled this straight from a KB on Community. They don't hide this. They want their customers to know this. So as we can see, this image is not that great. I can tell you right now, they're not following their recommendations. So the first thing is we want a 300 by 300 DPI. TIFF file formats are preferred. We want black and white images. Color can mess up the OCR quality, and especially if you have like shading or gray boxes in the headers, that can really throw some stuff off. It's not, ideal, but Brainware can definitely, make it through there sometimes. We want the original scanned images, and we don't want any extra markings. Like this one's got numbers and scribbles, and it looks like a pretty bad scan. There's a lot of background noise there. So if we can avoid that, that would be great. We want one invoice per file, and then their scanner recommendations are basically the same, TIFF images at 300 by 300. So now that we got those garbage docs out of the way, let's talk about backups. This should go without saying, but backups are kind of important. So basically, before we make any changes in test, and especially prod, we want to take a backup of everything. There's 4 main components we want to look at. We've got the config file, the project file, and then the train and pool folders. And I can kind of show you where that's at here. On my little VM, we've got the global folder that we want. So this is just the project folder. So this is usually, somewhere like C, Brainware projects, BFI. On this one, we've got a couple different BFIs on here, so we just didn't want to confuse ourselves. But if you could get to the global folder, that's where all of our project files are. This is where Brainware basically lives. So we've got our SDP file. This is our project file itself. The INI file, which is your configuration settings. And then the train and pool folder. The train is for like all of your learn sets, and then the pool is for like the vendor and user information. So what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and copy these. I just keep like a little backup folder and C backups, make a new folder, put in today's date. And that way, if anything goes wrong in our customizations or troubleshootings, what we could do is we could just take these files and basically, set everything back as of right now. So if we go in there and we break everything and just burn it down, we're totally fine. What we could do is we'll just go back to our global folder. And what I like to do is I like to delete these. So that way, especially with folders, we don't want to add to the folder. We want to overwrite the folder entirely. So we'll just go ahead and delete these, paste the old files, and everything is back like it was the day before, and crisis averted. So now that we got the backups done, I'd like to talk about RTS, or Runtime Service Management Console. This is vital to troubleshooting because this is where we can see all of our instances and set up logging to help isolate some issues. And as I mentioned, we can view and configure the instance settings. So these are all of your, imports, exports, the OCRs, all that fun stuff. And we definitely want to set the logging levels, and we'll kind of dive into that. And there's this also little handy dandy utility I saw in Task Manager. I learned this not too long ago, and I'm really excited about it. So I'm really happy that you guys are here today. So let's dive in and take a look at RTS. So if we get back to our desktop, it'll be this little funnel here. I think in the older versions, it's called Runtime Service Management Console. In the latest and greatest, this is EP2. It's just called Management Console. They kind of trimmed it down a little bit. But whoops, that is for later. So basically, when we get in here, we've got all of our instances here, import, export, OCR, and extraction. Depending on your configurations, they might be set up a little bit differently. Typically, import and export are its own instance. OCR and extraction could be their own. This is just a test VM, so it doesn't really matter too much. But what I want to take a look at here, and what we need to do is we need to stop this instance first. So we'll stop that, and then we'll go into our properties. So right here, we've got no logging set, and we can set this to a couple different options. We've got warnings, info, and error. No logging and warning, I really wouldn't recommend. Info is, my favorite because it gives us, almost too much information. Error is good too, but what I like about info is that it'll give us information about before and after the error message, so we can kind of, see what happened where, and it might point us in the right direction. And since we are using logging, we're going to want to go ahead and set this delete log files after, I usually recommend 30 days. 2 weeks is fine too. As long as we have enough information, if something happened a week ago and we need to go in there, we have that information. If we don't have it, it's kind of hard to troubleshoot. And another thing we wanted to make sure we have is automatic start. I've seen this where people are, rebooting their servers at night, or they're restarting services, and then they're like, oh, well, my import's broken. Nothing's getting in here. So we're going to want to go ahead and make sure we have that set, and I'll kind of show you what's going on with that with some of the other instances. But let's go ahead and get this started. So now that we've got our logging set there, and we'll do the same thing. We got to stop it, properties, info, we got 30 days, automatic start, and then we'll turn that back on. Same thing here. And this one I'm going to, whoops, didn't want to do that. There we go, propertize. Okay, info. And this one I'm going to leave off just to kind of show you what happens there. But we're good to go there. So we've got all of those set. And then let's say we've got a batch here that we're looking for. And you might have hundreds or thousands of batches. So it might be a lot harder to find than on this demo machine where I've got 6 of them in here. But basically what we could do is if you have a specific batch that you want to find, what we could do is we could go in here, batch ID equals 3359, and it would help if I could spell. I swear that is the hardest part of this job. And then we could go straight to the batch. And what's really nice about this is that if we change the priority, we could set this to a 1. It's not going to change anything as far as processing or anything like that. But what we have here is this will set this to the top in verifier and designer. It'll basically just make it easier to find. And then going back to the task manager thing, what I wanted to talk about, if we go to task manager and we look at the details tab, we have all of these DST hosts here, and each one of these corresponds to a instance. but it doesn't really do us any good because we can't see which is which. And if we're having issues with one of these and we don't know which one it is, but this is what I just found out, like, I don't know, less than a year ago. We go to select columns and we go to this command line. This is fantastic right here. Because now we can see we've got our import, export, OCR1, OCR2, OCR1, OCR2. So now what happens is when we stop the service, we come over here, and you always want to stop this. You don't want to restart it, because when you restart it, it can kind of mess with these DST hosts and things get kind of wonky. Sometimes it might duplicate them. Sometimes they won't start or stop up again. And it's not, you don't want to do that. They even have this fancy little batch files over here that come with the installation where you can stop them and start them instead of coming through, Task Manager or services. But basically, if you learn anything today, it's that you need to stop these services and not restart them. And as we can see, these DST hosts will start to slowly disappear, and there they go. But let's say one of them, you weren't listening to me and you threw some garbage documents in there and it bogs down your system and one of those instances is hanging. At least now we have this command line where we can see which one it is and we can kind of go in there and see what's going on. Because now, we've got our import export. Let's pretend that, when we close that out, all the other ones disappeared and that one stayed. At least now we know that that's, import export. But going back to our, let's go ahead and refresh that because that happened there. So now that we move this to the priority one, if I go into here, let's pretend, we've got hundreds or thousands of batches. I think the max limit is 1,000. So if you're looking for a batch, it might not even be there. But basically what we can do here is once we refresh this, that priority one will always be at the top of the list there. I mean, if you have more than one priority ones, it'll take priority. That's how that works. But what we can do is now that we've got our problem batch, we could take a look and see what's going on. We've got a lot of 700s. That's great. These are ready for export. But we've got this 550 here, which is saying that, hey, whoa, something went wrong here. And what we could do is we could go over to verifier test mode and take a look at this. And this is basically what your users are seeing in verifier. And as we can see, it's already got the date highlighted, so it knows something's wrong there. And it's basically saying, please check that the invoice date has been read correctly. And at first glance, it looks like it's pretty good. We've got the date, it's picking up the right values, but we'll get into that a bit later to see what's going on there. For now, I'd like to talk about these log files that we just set up. So we've got the instances set to logging, but cool, great. What do they do? What are they? Where are they? The H and S logs I use the most. H is specific to the instances. So we'll have an H import, an H OCR, an H OCR. I use those the most. That seems to be the most helpful. The S logs are for security issues. So if you've got specific users or groups that, things aren't working the way that they should, or it's like, oh, well, like Bill's search bar is working, but Ted's search bar doesn't. We can usually look in the logs and see that they might not have access to a database. They might not have like the right connection strings, something along those lines. It'll at least help us point us in the right direction. With the D and V logs, those are for designer and verifier. Those are more specific to issues that they might be having within their respective applications. But let's dive in and take a look to see where those are. And again, I like to keep everything on the quick access menu. It just makes my life a lot easier. I'm in here all the time. As I said before, this is your project folder, and this one is going to the installation folder. So it's usually C, program files 86. Hyland, Brainware Intelligent Capture, Brainware Intelligent Capture, bin, and then log root. In the older versions, it's just log, but in the newer versions, it's got this log root, then log. So if you don't see that, don't be too concerned. It's in there some. Go to the bin folder, you'll find it. But what I typically do is I like to sort by either date modified or the name. The name's nice because like if I'm looking for a specific instance, I can just go down to H. I've got my import export. Or if I want to go by date, and we can kind of sort it by there. We need everything from today. We can find it easily. I'm going to take a look at the import export, and I kind of want to show you what I was talking about with like info. Info will tell you everything that is happening in Brainware at any given time. It's basically the host is starting, it's processing, it's connecting, it's checking, it didn't find anything, it's stopping. It's starting, it's connecting, it's checking, it didn't find it, it's stopping. So that can get kind of tedious, and these files can get kind of big. So that's why we need to delete them after 30 days, 2 weeks, whatever it may be. You don't want your sysadmins yelling at you for storage space issues. But if we do a Control F and we're looking for our batch here, 3611, this will give us some more information about what it's doing here. And this is why I prefer info over error, because like let's say it did have an error here. It might say, there was a connection issue, there was a file issue, there was, whatever it may be. At least this tells us what's going on before and after it, and that might give us, what we need to track down the issue and see what's going on there. So moving on to our Workdoc browser. I really want to talk about this one because I feel like not too many people are aware of this. And this one will basically let us see what Brainware sees. It's all of the information about the information. And what's really nice about this is that you can save the documents directly from Brainware. So let's say you have an issue where you've got something going on in prod and you want to move that over to your test system. But instead of going to OnBase and pulling up the doc handle and finding the document, and then you got to save it from there, or maybe if you want to go to your ERP system and pull it from there, it's a hassle that we don't want to deal with. So this way, it's pretty easy to go through. And basically, what we can do is in Start, Hyland, and Workdoc Browser. I've already got it opened up. We'll go to our project, and if we look at our issue from before, our 550, trying to figure out what's going on here, what's nice is that it's got all of the information that Brainware sees here. It was able to find 215 words, and it'll highlight them all for you. It'll see, I was mentioning before about like the grayscale and everything. It wasn't able to pick up the THU in thumb. It's only picking up the M and B because the image there is kind of obscuring that, and that can and does happen. We've got different text blocks, text lines. My favorite here is the fields though. If we look at the fields, we look at this whole document over here, what we can do is we can kind of go down and scroll through everything. We had an issue with the invoice date. So if we look at the date, we can see it did pick up 129.20. That's cool. That's what we want. But it's saying it's not valid. And there's our same error message that we saw in Verifier. Please check that the invoice date has been read correctly. So what we can do is if we look at the candidates tab here, we can see that it'll highlight which one it's looking at. So this guy right there. And I mean, it'll even pick up anything else that could possibly be a date, even some things that you're probably wondering like, well, that's not a date. And it'll show you like how confident it is. And we can see here that it's only 84% confident with this one there, as opposed to some of these other ones where it's, this one's a negative value. It's not even considering that at all. And depending on how this is configured, you can choose the confidence levels. And basically what happens is this one is set to 84%. It's a little bit under that confidence level. So Brainware is basically saying, I think it's this value, but I'm not too sure. I'm going to need somebody to come and take a second look at this just to double check and make sure that we're looking at the right stuff here. So this one will need to be reviewed in Verifier by a person just because it doesn't meet the qualifications there. And if we look at some of the other documents here, we can kind of see and take a look, and I mean the quality looks about the same. So it's not like it's a bad document or anything. But one thing I did notice is that this one has invoice date. So if we look at these fields, and on this invoice date, you can see, it's valid, where the other one was saying false there. And this one, it's 167% sure that the invoice date is the invoice date. It's smart enough to realize that that's what we want there. Whereas this one, it's pretty sure because, judging by these other documents in here that, it's got the invoice date there, it thinks that could be it. So let's say we wanted to take this into our test system, see if we can change those confidence levels, if there's any sort of settings or options that we can do. What we can do is we can right click on this and we will copy document to file system. We'll throw this on the desktop just so it's easy to find. I'll go ahead and save that. We'll get back to our desktop. And there it is. We've got the image file itself, which we could just take this, throw it straight into the test system, throw it in the import folder. And then it also gives you the Workdoc browser file, which is nice if I ever need to take a look at this. If you guys send me the the file itself and the Workdoc browser, we could take a look together, see what we got going on there. It just makes life easier when you have all of that information to see what we need to do to make this more efficient. So our reporting queries that we created here at Naviant, they're just some SQL reporting queries that'll basically give you information that you need to prioritize and make your solution a little bit more efficient. We have 5 main queries. We've got the vendor straight throughput percentage, and this will give you like an idea how to determine which vendors you should focus on. If you've got a high quality vendor and it's getting a low throughput, we might want to focus a little bit more on that than a low throughput, but they're also a low. If you're getting one a month, a couple a year, like who cares? Somebody has got to take a look at that. Is it really worth the time and effort to spend creating a learn set or working on that one? But if you're getting one of your biggest vendors and they're a low throughput, let's take a look at that. There's got to be something we could do there. The monthly straight throughput is your overall straight throughput, and this is great. If you've made some recent changes and you want to see how effective they've been, if it's helping things, if it's hurting things, this will basically just tell you what you need to know. The field level accuracy is a little bit more granular, and this will tell you all the accuracy down to each field level. And then kind of by supplier, that'll do the same thing, but it's grouped by the supplier. So again, if we're looking at the vendor straight throughput, and then we pull up, the field level, we might see that, vendor XYZ, their invoice numbers always fail, or maybe the last one with the invoice date, and that might be something that we could work with the vendor where we can have them modify their invoices. Or it might be something where we could create a learn set for that. There's got to be something we could do to make this a little bit more efficient for you. And then the counts document verified by user each month. This will basically show you who's doing what. You might have somebody verifying 1,000 docs a month, or somebody who's verifying 50. Maybe they're working on some more complicated stuff. Maybe they're a bunch of slackers. I don't know. This gives you the information that you need to take a look and see what we got there. And basically, these are our queries here. This is something that we can provide. The only thing that you'll need to change, these are pretty like plug and play here. But if you want to change the date to a specific date, all you need to do is change this here. You could do it by month, by year, by week, by day, whatever you're looking at there. And then also depending on what we're at, we might need to change the database. Most of them should be, BFI reporting. Some of them might be on some older versions that are using something else. Some of them might be on a newer version that's using something else. But as long as you've got, a DBA or any sort of SQL experience there, that shouldn't be too hard. That should be the only things you need to modify there. So let's take a look at our queries here. And I've got a couple of them pulled up here. So this is our monthly straight throughput. And as we can see in May of 2020, we had 67 docs come in, 31 of them went through. It's a little less than 50%. Not great, not terrible, could be a little bit better. 7 was a slow month for us. We didn't do a whole lot of work, so it was pretty good, 100%, but we've only got 1 doc, so it's not that great of a litmus test there. But if we look at our vendor straight throughput, we can see, saltwater, we got invoice coming in, 20 of them went straight through, 100%. You really can't do much better than that. And we do have this sorted by invoice count, so we know that, the highest vendors, these are the ones we probably want to look at first, as opposed to, okay, we get 1 a month and 0 of them are coming in. That's fine. We'll just get Bill or Ted and they can take a look at that. So that's totally fine. As we can see, group by, order by, blah, blah, blah. But what we have here is that we can kind of take a look and see if we want to take what's going on with, ePuro here. This isn't ideal. We're getting almost as much as saltwater, but 0 of them are going through. And again, this just gives you the information that you need to make the decisions over there. So Hyland offers some fantastic learning resources. The product documentation, I use this all the time, and I'm actually going to kind of show you guys what this is. What we have here is this is basically their version of like on-base MRGs. It's a little bit different, but kind of similar. So if we go into, we've got Brainware Intelligent Capture, BFI. I'm sure most of you are using that. We've got SCM. I use this one a lot. But let's dive into Brainware Intelligent Capture. We've got all the different versions. I'm sure most of you guys are probably on 5.9 or 5.9.1. I'm currently on the latest and greatest in my little VM here, so that's where I'll go. We've got the installation guides, which are fantastic. It's just got, step-by-step information you might need. I use this a lot. The online help is fantastic. I love this, especially for like, designer, verifier, runtime server. If there's ever any sort of like checkboxes you guys aren't too sure about, if you want to know more information about anything at all, just dive right in. It's pretty user friendly. We can search for things. We can use this little navigation bar on the side here, like, oh, maybe you want to know more. Oh, what's a Workdoc? We mentioned Workdoc Browser today. This will basically give you everything you need to know about this. We can kind of dive through here. We've got project information, project files, blah, 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 whatever you might know. This is absolutely fantastic. And then there's a few e-learnings. If you guys have the premium subscriptions to Hyland, I've done all of these e-learnings. They're all wonderful informations right there. They range anywhere from about 15 minutes to a couple hours. But I would definitely recommend you getting in there and taking a look at these if you have the subscriptions. And they do have a couple of classes as well. I've taken the installation and configuration class. I haven't taken the core concepts, but I mean, so far it's been great. It tells you basically everything you need to know as far as that's concerned. And then in general, I hope that I have shown you guys some new tips and tricks that'll help with your Brainware troubleshooting skills. These are what I do every day. These are my go-to techniques. Log files I use every day, searching for batches, verifier test mode. I hope that this has helped you guys out. And if you guys need any links to any of the documentation I showed, whether it's the reporting queries, the trainings, or that docs.hyland.com link, let me know and we'll be happy to provide that. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the questions that you guys had here. Doesn't look like we had too many questions here. So it looks like you guys learned everything you needed to know. I must be doing pretty good at my job then. Well, on that note, we have some ideas that Hyland offers, and what we like to do is kind of showcase some of these to get some traction going on community. Ideas are suggested for improvements for Hyland products and solutions, and when an idea is posted, other members can vote up on the idea, and once it meets a certain threshold, Hyland kind of considers that for enhancements in the future. So some of the ideas that I found going on here was the ability to track if a document is manually classified or verified by a user in Brainware Verifier. Just using native on-base software, it is possible to find this information out through the database, but it's a lot of custom queries and searching, and it's kind of a hassle, to be honest. So as soon as I saw this one, I thought this was a fantastic idea, and if we could just get this in on-base, that'd be amazing. Another one is the Brainware date received column. It's kind of there where like the last accessed, but let's say a user is in it in Verifier, they're in it in Designer, they're looking at it. It's kind of hard to sort by when it actually came in, or what day something happened. And if we're getting tons and tons of like documents a day, it could be kind of hard when it actually came in. And then the last one is a Brainware zoom position, which is just kind of a user experience that could be improved. When you're zoomed in on a document and then you move to a different document, it kind of stays in the same spot, or as long as we could just kind of get some consistency there and maybe zoom out for the next one or zoom in on that, it's just a little thing that would basically make our users' lives a little bit easier. But on that note, that's really all I had for you today. So Nella, thank you again for the opportunity to present, and I really hope that you guys learned something today. I hope this has been beneficial for you.
Thank you, James, and thanks everybody for coming. Don't forget to complete that survey that is at the end of this webinar, and if you have any questions, please reach out to support@naviant.com. Thanks again, everybody. Bye-bye.